On this channel, we've talked about many Dragon Ball characters. Some of them are frequent heroes of the various discussions even. Others do have videos dedicated to them once in a blue moon, but we feel like we should acknowledge them. And, you know, we really don't like to repeat ourselves, at least not that often. So we have searched far and wide for denizens of the Dragon world that we haven't really talked about in their own videos. We're talking about someone to whom you could maybe give a 10 to 15 minute video. Sorry, Dr. Briefs' cat. And we realized that there is a character that is pretty important to the overall lore, and what is happening in the late portion of Z that is often omitted from the talks that we actually give, and is rarely mentioned in passing. But the way he acts kind of diminishes his relevancy within the main story of the Buu saga. It's nobody's favorite character, the old or elder Kai. He just suddenly appears, as if we need more exposition to advance the plot, and later has ties to the key characters of the Super era, and is actually kind of important in GT. Is GT important though? Yet, we don't really talk about him all that much. We talk about the Supreme Kai, Shin, because he's not that great of a character in the first place. He seems just like an inferior, heavenly copy of Master Roshi, with all of the dated and problematic stuff intact. Just with the Supreme Kai set of powers is all. Oh yeah, and personality-wise, he is definitely more grumpy. He's funnier when he is moody and angry though. Less so when he's creepy and lecherous. But also, man, he's kind of important as well. And in regards to his actual lecherousness, we actually don't know whether or not that he was actually like that to begin with, or whether it was actually the influence that came his way to make him look as old as he is. So what do we know about him? Well, he is from the 15th generation before Shin, though some sources claim that he is the 15th Supreme Kai overall, and was sealed in the Z-Sword by Beerus a whopping 65 million years before Moro came around, which makes it actually 70 million years before the whole Bibbidi thing. We also know that he owes his current form to the Old Witch, like I've just mentioned, who is a very mysterious character on her own, as we practically don't know anything about her. Was she some kind of entity from the sacred world of the Kais, or just a random witch that just so happened to be there? Maybe one of Fortune Teller Barber's predecessors, you know, magic, witchery, it's hard to say. The only thing we do know is that she borrowed one of the Supreme Kai's Patara earrings, probably more likely stole, put it on, and well, before they merged, he wasn't all that old. He also had a pretty fiery argument with his lifelink god of destruction, Beerus, so in a way you could say that Beerus kinda killed him, but didn't, because if he had, then Beerus would no longer exist, so this was the next best thing. Obviously, some legends arose about the weapon. It was said that it contained some hidden power, but honestly, power was just this geezer being imprisoned by the big bad cat, so it just so happened to contain someone pretty nifty. Also, the weapon itself really wasn't that great, as it broke with Gohan and Goku just training with it, not even using it in anger, and in future Trunks' timeline, during a fight with future Deborah, so that was it. But what's really important here is that if the blade gets petrified, then Elder Kai is not freed. It seems like the future stinks for everyone involved, even for the immortal beings sealed within them. Still, the old man had some pretty useful knowledge about Patara and the ability to unlock potential, as well as being able to give some exposition about Beerus. The problem is that it always felt to me like a little bit of a deus ex machina. It's hard to say if Toriyama's train of thought when creating the character was something along the lines of this. Oh boy, Buu is sure strong. I know, magical Kai from the sword, even older than Shin, boom. Laughs. But maybe making him very similar personality-wise to Roshi felt like a hasty and not well thought of addition. So it was just like, old guy. Who else is old? Ah, Roshi. I mean, even him sacrificing his own life to bring Goku back is played for laughs. So not even the author is treating him absolutely seriously, it seems. He's just a means of convenience. Literally every other deity in the series felt more interesting, and yes, that includes Zeno. At least the creepy child doll ruling the universe has some kind of intrigue behind it as a concept, like Chaozu taken to extremes. Still, This guy even saw Golden Uzaru at some point, and is the one who christened the name Super Saiyan 4, and appeared to have knowledge about it, which kind of indicates something, that Goku isn't the first one in the GT timeline, which poses a lot of questions. But not for this discussion, honestly. In Super, he provides most of the exposition for Beerus, and is delegated to being just a background character, sort of what happened with Kibito Kai, and now the Co-Supreme Kai of Universe 7? He no longer has the life link with Beerus, otherwise the cat would be very surprised when he gave back his life to Goku. Also, when he was telling his story, he said, in the original version, that he was sealed in the sword by a very bad guy, but not as bad as Buu, and that this individual might have been afraid of how fearsome he was. While this is a retcon and an early mention of Beerus if you want to think about it, but obviously indirect, it would not be out of character for the Elder Kai to lie about the reason for his imprisonment to make himself look cool. Also, in the Xenoverse world, he admits that he was aware of his surroundings whilst in the sword. That couldn't have been healthy for his mental state, honestly. While he holds a grudge against Beerus in the games, he does agree with him on his stance regarding time machines and overall opinions of mortals. He's not really fond of the Dragon Balls, nor is he aware of their existence on Earth until, Goku and Gohan show up. Despite seemingly having a universe-vast perception, being aware of everything, he's conveniently not aware of that. This seems to prove that while he does seem to possess some sort of godly insight, there are things about him that even he cannot see. Even though he does seem immature and grumpy at the time, he is capable of some degree of bravery. As in Heroes, he refuses to hand over Toki Toki, who later turns out to be the true ruler of time in his god-bird form, a thing that Elder Kai is notably aware of, to Meki Kabura, so basically that's just the Heroes version of Dabura, even though Dabura actually exists in that till. Also, we can cut the whole giving his life up thing, except he only gains a halo above his head, so this doesn't really seem to be a big difference for him. He's already in a world where dead people exist, so, not really. Also, there is a big elephant in the room here, which is something to do with, let's call this thing the Roshi issue. On one hand, we don't often see him in the act, but we do hear things that he wants to do, and the dub really sweetened things up in that regard. So that might make him less problematic than Roshi because he doesn't act upon it, whether Kais have a libido, but still, he is a deity. And if Greek mythology has taught us anything about raunchy deities, yeah. Being able to perceive any world at any time with his personality makes stuff considerably more icky than Master Roshi. That and the Turtle Hermit is genuinely a more amiable person. He seems to be more friendly and much more pleasant than the Elder Kai, prone to mood swings, boasting, screaming, what have you. Once again, he is not nearly as prominent for it to be really all that noticeable, but it is there. And in Xenoverse, when he is one of the player's guides and tutors, they luckily focus on different aspects of his personality. I don't think I would have been able to handle it if it were in the game properly. Still, looking at him now, it's hard to think that his presence in the story takes something away from Shin and makes him look even more incompetent, which honestly is a huge disservice to the job of the Supreme Kai. The sole fact that a lot of what seems to be common knowledge in other universes seems to be a novelty for the younger of the two. That seems to exist only to bring him down, really. I mean, if you think about it, all of this happened with Buu millions of years ago. So you think that Shin would have had plenty of time to learn things over several eons. And one could also wonder this. When exactly did someone else see him missing and decided to lifelink Beerus with a new Kai? Because that's weird. Were Zeno and the Grand Priest okay with him simply vanishing or being put under the sword? I mean, technically he wasn't killed, so maybe they just didn't care. I mean, you'd have to imagine that the disappearance of a Supreme Kai would be a pretty big deal. Even him fusing with some kind of witch would have been news. Maybe that's why things were looking so bad. Because Beerus messed up with the succession, and a lot of useful information about Kaiden was lost. Which may mean that no Supreme Kai knew about the real purpose of the Potara because of the Universe 7 GOD. Beerus screwed everything up. And you think, now you know what? That actually seems pretty logical. If that's the reason, imagine how much easier things would have been in the Buu saga if they knew about Potara in the first place. That being said, it's worth remembering that Elder Kai did not know that non-Kai fusions are not in fact permanent. So Even he had some gaps in his knowledge, but he knew a damn sight more than Shin did. That, and we don't know if he had an apprentice of his own. Which also begs another question. What even happens to ex-Supreme Kais? Well, I mean, they die since they have lifespans of 75,000 years, right? Well, we don't see a lot of them running around, but do they have a regular afterlife or maybe something special? Also, we don't really meet any regular Kais other than Kibito. Although, can we really call a bodyguard and attendant of the Supreme Kai a regular member of his species? He'd have to have some ability to be able to be in the presence of a Supreme Kai. The only universes with more than one that we've seen are Universe 7 and Universe 10, with Zamasu in training. How nobody in the past saw the Supreme Kai missing with Beerus still alive and kicking, and not asking questions is just beyond me. But maybe one day we'll learn exactly what happened, but knowing Dragon Ball, probably not. Toriyama doesn't have a lot to say about the character, but there is one answer from Saikyo Jump number 6 from 2014, and the translation credits go to Kanzenshuu, of course, say a Jedi in Herms. Who was it that sealed the Elder Kaioshin away in the Z-Sword? The Kaioshin, who creates planets, and the Gods of Destruction, who destroy them, have never gotten along that well. But once every 1,000 years, they go to each other's realms and hold a coordination meeting. At this time, they got into an argument over some trifling thing, and a certain short-tempered god of destruction sealed Elder Kaioshin away inside a Z-Sword. Naturally, it wouldn't have been proper for him to destroy the Kaioshin realm itself. By the way, that god of destruction was Beerus. In the same issue, coincidentally, the whole procedure of Kaioshin succession that we asked about before is being addressed, albeit quite laconically. The Kaioshin are said to have the highest status in the universe, but how can you become a Kaioshin? Well, no one can. Kaioshin are born as Kaioshin. There are 3 of them, and they work in shifts. Though there are 2 of them on duty now, if one of the Kaioshin were to die in an accident, then the currently inactive Kaioshin would grow in the Kaioshin realm like a plant. If there aren't any accidents, then it's said their lifespans are about 75,000 years. Things get pretty confusing as noted by Kanzenshuu, as this information seems to contradict something that we have known about earlier about the Kaioshin, coming from the super exciting guide character volume. Is Kaio-sama a hereditary position? Inside the big ball I mentioned before, there is a planet called the World Core, Kaishinsei, where the Kaio are born and raised. It's a world like a gigantic planet Kaio, and Kaio-sama and his peers are born as core people, Shinjin, from the fruit of the World Core's giant world tree, Kaiju. The planet's population is about 80. Core people are neither male nor female, and their average lifespan is said to be about 75,000 years. At a castle that's like a school, they learn a variety of things and live an easygoing life. However, if a Kaio dies on one of the Kaio planets, the next Kaio is chosen from among them by lottery. However, a Kaioshin is chosen only from core people who are born from a special golden fruit, which rarely occurs. In addition, there are occasionally delinquent core people with evil hearts. Those ones fall under the Makaio. I mean, it's similar, but not exactly the same. Well, that's Toriyama for you. Also, did they think that Elder Kai had an accident and died, maybe? Maybe the regular Kaioshin are not aware of the life link between the Supreme Kai and the God of Destruction. This seems to be the only logical explanation for that conundrum. As you can see, the whole situation around the character seems to be more interesting than the Elder Kai himself. You can really sum him up by calling him a grumpier, meaner Roshi with god powers who doesn't really fight on his own. And you wouldn't be that far off, actually. The thing is that he always felt like an odd addition. Kind of like this one joke that doesn't translate well between cultures and for some reason is still going on. Admittedly, the funniest thing he does is the whole ritual dance thing, but creating a character just for the sake of that seems a little bit unnecessary. Then again, Toriyama is sometimes like that, I suppose. Maybe we're being a little bit too harsh on the character, but we often forget about him, and I feel like that we're not the only ones who do. He is literally a deus ex machina, not really memorable in his own right. And while you can jokingly put jabs towards Shin, he is at least memorable for how he fails at everything, and it's sometimes not even his own fault. This guy, oh yeah, he's around, and you probably remind yourself of him when you play Xenoverse. Other than that, not really. I'm pretty sure that if someone tells you to list 50 Dragon Ball characters, he wouldn't be there. Maybe we're wrong. If you, the person watching this video, love Elder Kai and is your favourite character, do let us know. It's really weird and almost uncanny how such an important character for the lore fails to make any personal impact on the characters and the story. I mean, maybe this is his fearsome power that he mentioned, being forgotten, being able to skulk about with anyone knowing. Well, okay, maybe not likely, but silly speculations tend to be fun. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.